The thunder of motorcycles had only just faded when an odd quiet settled over the narrow town street. As the row of leather-clad bikers climbed off their chrome machines, one man drew attention, not because of his broad frame or the ink covering his skin, but because of the deep, haunting fatigue in his eyes. His name was Rowan Hail, a veteran member of the Hells Angels, feared for his temper, respected for his fearlessness, and impossible to read. But that morning, something unexpected took place. Something so subtle it slipped past everyone's notice. A small girl in a washed-out red dress, clutching a stuffed bear missing an eye, began trailing behind him. She kept her distance, quiet and careful, following Rowan as though he were the only safe island in a dangerous world. And though Rowan carried the weight of 100 personal storms, he couldn't ignore the uneasy sense that those tiny footsteps had a message, one meant only for him. If you believe in kindness, redemption, and the goodness still alive in humanity, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stories of Kindness. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them. At first, Rowan pretended she wasn't there. He and his crew had stopped at the cafe to unwind after a long ride, hoping a hot cup of straight black coffee would settle the chaos spinning inside his mind. Life had been merciless lately. He carried grief like a sealed chest, filled with memories he never talked about. Memories of a child he lost, a family torn apart by his anger and destructive choices. As he leaned against the cafe window, trying to bury the thoughts clawing at him, he noticed the girl again, still watching, still holding the torn bear as if it were her armor. Rowan crouched, muttering under his breath. Even bending down felt like unfamiliar territory. He wasn't built for gentle moments anymore. When the child stepped closer, he noticed her tangled hair, the dried tear streaks on her cheeks, the way her eyes darted around anxiously, as though terrified someone might drag her back where she came from. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Her eyes carried a helplessness he recognized painfully well. Something inside him shifted, sharp, raw, real. Why would a child choose him of all people? A man wrapped in leather, scars, and intimidation. His fellow bikers eventually caught on. They threw a few harmless jokes his way, confused but amused, until Rowan shut them down with a glance that grew darker each moment the little girl stayed near him. When he rose, she reached out and tugged gently at his vest. The pull was barely there, yet it struck him like a blow. The pressure wasn't what froze him. It was the silent plea hidden inside it. He walked toward the shaded side of the cafe. She followed again. Small steps, nervous, determined. Rowan halted, she halted. His shadow stretched across her tiny form, and for a few suspended seconds the world grew impossibly quiet around them. Then he saw them, faint bruises blooming beneath her sleeves, marks no child should ever carry. His stomach twisted, his fist tightened, his throat locked. But he forced himself to breathe. Not yet, not until he knew the truth. He lowered himself again, softer this time, and she moved toward him, trembling slightly as she placed her small hand on his shoulder. She didn't know who he was, but in that moment, she trusted him more than anyone else in the world. Rowan's vision blurred. He blinked fiercely, trying to steady himself. Nothing in his violent, chaotic past had prepared him for such fragile, overwhelming need. Quietly, he asked where her parents were. She pointed down the road, toward a house he knew too well, a place whispered about even among hardened bikers, a house with a history soaked in cruelty, not rumors. Something ignited inside Rowan, not the destructive rage that once ruled him, but a protective fire that burned clean, sharp, and righteous. He lifted her gently into his arms. She didn't resist. She relaxed against him, as though she had finally reached the one person who wouldn't let her fall. When he carried her back toward the cafe, his crew stared, speechless. They had watched Rowan fight storms, rivals twice his size, and demons no one dared ask about, but they had never seen tears tracing down his face. The untouchable force was undone by a little girl who needed saving. He sat on the curb, and she placed her worn stuffed bear on his knee, offering him the only treasure she owned. Something inside him shattered completely. Tears he had buried for years spilled out, quiet, urgent, unstoppable. Grief for his past, fury for her suffering. Hope, small but alive, that maybe he could still get one thing right. One by one, the bikers gathered around. No jokes, no smirks, only silent understanding. Without being asked, they formed a protective ring around the girl, shielding her from the street, the noise, and the darkness she had escaped. Rowan made a vow then. She would never have to run again. As the police and social workers arrived, as his crew guaranteed her safety, As Rowan held her hand until she finally felt brave enough to let go, something shifted inside him. The sealed box of grief loosened. A faint glow replaced it, something like redemption, a reminder that no matter how broken someone believes they are, kindness can still be their strongest armor. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe to Stories of Kindness. Your support keeps real stories of humanity alive. Before you leave, tell us in the comments, what would you do if you saw a little girl following a stranger for help? As Rowan watched her being guided toward a new beginning, carrying hope in her small hands, he realized something powerful. Even the toughest hearts can be mended by the gentlest souls.